Hey, Tom, what was the reaction like at the Combine with Marvin Harrison Jr. being a no-show?
It wasn't really surprising between him and Caleb Williams. They're both going about this process a little bit differently, and they are two of the top, depending who you ask, two of the top five, if not two of the top two prospects in the entire draft. What I find fascinating, Suzy, is there's other sports where this is not uncommon. For instance, in the NBA, and somebody could fact check me on this because I'm not an NBA insider, but I believe the last number one pick to go through the full combine with the medical and everything was John Wall. I mean, it's been a long time. Those top prospects who aren't going to help themselves through the process of going through something like the combine. If anything, they might potentially hurt themselves, even though if you're Caleb or Marvin, you're probably not too concerned about that happening either. But those guys traditionally don't work out. You're talking about a new generation of athletes here. You're talking about, this is really the first class of those NIL babies, the guys who have been professional football players for a couple of years before they come into the NFL. I think the really interesting thing will be to see what sort of trend, if any, this creates, because now with those guys, and neither one has a traditional agent. Caleb has a team of advisors. Marvin Harrison also is going without a true agent. I'm sure he can lean on his dad, among others, for advice through the course of this process. It just makes me wonder, do we start to have this become a regular thing where more than a couple of the top prospects simply say, you know what, anything I do here, good or bad, is not going to impact my draft stock in a positive fashion. I'll show up, I'll do the interviews, maybe I'll do the media. Caleb did that today, and I thought that he did, help himself from a public perception standpoint. Marvin Harrison, for reasons that have not been fully explained yet, was not at his media session. Does any of this really matter with those two guys? Probably not. For the 99.9% of other draft prospects, this is a pretty big week.
This is sewn up, isn't it? Isn't Caleb going to the Bears? I mean, it seems like you might as well just call the draft tomorrow.
Well, what the Bears wanted to do was really use this week to gather data points in terms of, they had never met Caleb. So they wanted to, at least in terms of the top brass, had not met Caleb. So, Kevin Warren, the team president, was down here along with Ryan Poles, Matt Eberflus, among others. They took their, 15-minute formal interview, one of the 45 that they get. I talked to Caleb Williams today, and I asked him about that. Just kind of, what was it like? You've been mocked and photoshopped into a Bears uniform for months here, and everybody assumes that this is a done deal. I thought it was interesting. He said that they really used that 15 minutes not to get to know him personally, but to test him on football and to see his mental and do some of the traditional things that teams do in these interviews, like showing a play at the start of the interview and coming back 10, 15 minutes later and asking him to go up to the board and draw that play again. Caleb comes from a different type of an offense. Lincoln Riley's run an air raid derivative type of the scheme. Caleb's best fit, just in talking to people, is probably in the style of offense that Shanahan, McVay derivative offense that Shane Waldron's going to be installing in Chicago. That's one more reason to believe what you said, which is that a lot of signs here point toward Caleb Williams going number one overall to the Bears. But Ryan Poles said he was not yet ready to share a quarterback master plan when he got to the podium earlier this week. I would imagine that come Sunday when they get back from the combine, they're going to be circling up, meeting, seeing what they have on the table, if anything, for the number one pick, what they have on the table, if anything, for Justin Fields, and finalize a decision that, to your point, they've probably had a pretty good idea about for several months now.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.